How long are you comfortable delaying sending over those articles?
Well, I'm comfortable right now with the way Nancy Pelosi has conducted herself and has worked with all of us during impeachment. I want to see a fair trial. I want to see a free trial. It is very troubling when the Senate Majority Leader and other senators said they have no intention of being impartial jurors, which is really what they're supposed to be. So hopefully they'll realize that this does not help anyone, let alone everybody in our country, and they'll cooperate, at which point I think that we'll move ahead expeditiously and very quickly, and we can continue. But I think it's not helpful when the senators, particularly the Majority Leader, is saying that he's not going to follow the Constitution and be a impartial arbiter.
Well, let me ask you this. Mitch McConnell may not like how Nancy Pelosi runs the House, and you guys and Nancy Pelosi may not like how Mitch McConnell runs the Senate, but really, one doesn't have a lot of say over the other.
No, that's true, but the Constitution does provide the parameters for impeachment. And if the Senate is going to not follow that, then I think that's something that we have to call to everybody's attention. I would like this to move as quickly as possible. I think it's important. You know, we knew when we brought up articles of impeachment that the Senate has a Republican and a majority, and the chances of them doing anything are not very great. But we follow the Constitution. That's all we're asking of the Senate. Follow the Constitution.
Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.